Hi, everyone. This is Ellen from the Astrology Journal. I want to talk about the charts for the lunar and solar eclipses coming up in March and April. So there's a lunar eclipse on March 25th, and then a solar eclipse on April 8th. And I want to talk about these really, it's as a way to talk about a way to read charts when you don't know a lot about how to read charts. So that's kind of the underlying reason for doing this. So anyway, this is a chart over here on the left for March 25th, the lunar eclipse on March 25th, 2024. And you can see that there's a lot going on over here on the left side of the chart and not a lot going on over here on the right side of the chart. But I'll actually talk more about that in a minute. So the main thing, other than this pattern of a lot going on the left and not much going on the right, there is a yod pattern in the chart. And it's pointing to the south node. So yod pattern, they talk about it as the quote unquote finger of God. And it really is just saying that the energies in the chart are pointing to one point, and everything's kind of like that's the point that's taking all of the energy, or everything's being directed at that point or being filtered through that point. So the south node is that point, and the south node has to do with our past. And this node, the south node, has been taking a lot of the charts over the last several months, I would say, if not more, but at least I would say the last several months have really had a lot of emphasis on the south node. And so as everything has been coming up, as Pluto's been winding down its journey in Capricorn, it's been flushing up all of this stuff, bringing up all of this stuff from our past. And we've been having to work through that. So that's kind of how I understand that. And the south node now is in Libra. The nodes take, there's a north node and a south node. South node is our past and the north node is our future. And the nodes take about 18 months to go through a sign. So right now the south node is at 15 degrees, halfway through the sign. So a lot of the work has been about the past as things have been coming up. You know, there's this sort of impatience to be further along than we are. But the work has been to process through what's coming up from our past. In Libra, there's this idea of balance and imbalance, and also our relationships and our experience of love, you could even say, with Libra. So we've been asked to kind of process through all that, to look through all that. As things are coming up in the world, that's bringing up, and those things are showing imbalances in the world, but we're also experiencing imbalances in our own lives. So I feel like that's what the South Node has been about. Like the emphasis on the South Node is like we can't get to the future if we don't process and resolve the past in whatever ways we need to do that for ourselves. So again, as things come up, we have that opportunity to do that. And we have been having that opportunity and that invitation to do that for some time now. So that continues with this March eclipse chart, March 25th, 2024. And that's Eastern Daylight Time at 3 in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time. And then there's Venus and Jupiter as kind of like holding down the endpoints of this yod pattern. In traditional astrology, Venus and Jupiter are called the benefic. So they're considered helpful planets, or benign, or beneficial energies, you could say. Jupiter is in Taurus, and it's ruled by Venus. So Jupiter is actually looking to Venus. And Venus is in Pisces. And again, this is not, again, I haven't talked about it in this video, but in lots of videos, I talk about Pisces as being about forgiveness and letting go and releasing and resolving. And it's also dreaming the new. So that's kind of what is going on. That the invitation with regard to the past, in a way, is to sort of start to let go of things, to release things, to start dreaming the new. Venus, as ruler of both Libra and Taurus, has to do with our relationships with ourselves and others. And it's also the feminine aspect of love, the receptive aspect of love. So whatever has been out of alignment with love, you could say, we're being asked to release and let go of, and to resolve and to absolve. And and all of that, and to help us bring us back into balance. Venus also has to do with our values. And in Jupiter in Taurus, Jupiter being about beliefs and the stories we tell, we're establishing the stories we tell about ourselves, we could say. And the stories we tell about ourselves, Taurus comes after Aries. We want that to be about our identity. So there's all this energy now going on in Aries. Aries is who am I? It's our identity. And then we go into Taurus, and that's establishing our identity, establishing our sense of self. We could say that Aries is a blueprint, the seed. So the oak tree is the blueprint for that oak tree is in the seed when that seed is planted. So we could say that's what Aries is, that blueprint that's planted that's in the seed that we plant. And then in Taurus, it's growing and establishing itself and sinking deep roots and building a trunk so that it's stable. And so the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, we want those to be in alignment with who we are so that they can be strong. Aries also has to do with courage, and I think it's super interesting. This is one of the things I love about astrology is you get insight about these ideas that we kind of kick around, but do we really understand them? So if Aries is symbolizing both courage and identity, can we be courageous if we don't know who we are? And I think that's a really big question. So we have this opportunity, this invitation with these energies in Aries to identify who are we within ourselves, to connect with that, to contact that within ourselves. It's there, it's the imprint in us, but are we connected with it? And this is our evolutionary trajectory with the North Node in Aries. This is where we're being invited to grow with the North Node in Aries. Who am I? Who am I? And the thing to think about with Aries, with Pluto having gone through Capricorn for so long and just having finished up, it's actually going to go back into Capricorn later this year, just for a little bit, for a month or two. I think it's a couple of months actually. And then it's going to go back into Aquarius and remain there for good. So Capricorn are the established structures, the established norms. And Aquarius is the breaking away from those established norms and kind of pulling us more into the future. We could say that Capricorn has to do with the past and what's been established that we live now, but that was really built up from the past patterns and habits and conditions and decisions and all of that. And then Aquarius is like, it's time, we still need to grow. And so it's breaking free of that past and it's moving into the future. You could also think of Capricorn as like representing the corporations, and we fit ourselves into the corporations and we do the work of the corporations. And then Aquarius is like the startups. It's like we break away from the corporations and we come together in groups and we work towards something together, towards something new and exciting and fresh. So there are a lot of different ways to think about all these archetypes. So those are a couple we can think about here. So in Capricorn, to the extent that our work is to fit ourselves into what's already there, we can lose touch with our identity, with our sense of self. And so with Pluto now in Aquarius and all of this energy in Aries, there's this opening up, this invitation to be like, wait a minute, who am I actually apart from my obligations? And this is Capricorn energy, apart from my obligations, apart from the expectations the society puts on me, apart from my sense of duty, apart from all of that. Who am I really? Aquarius also has to do with originality, uniqueness. So who am I as apart from being what is expected of me? Who am I? So that might be a question that comes up for us. And then in this solar eclipse, a lot of similarities in the energies. There's no yod pattern in this solar eclipse. It's really the energy is really focused on this opposition between the south node and the north node. But you can see there's this whole pileup of planets that are opposed to south node. So all of these planets, I just didn't have room to fit everything in. It doesn't look like it's in Aries, but everything from Venus to Mercury here, all these planets strung together like a bead, these are all in Aries. And then Jupiter and Uranus here are in Taurus. But otherwise, all of these planets are in Aries. So a ton of buildup in Aries, much more. There's a shift. Here you see, we'll look at this actually I'll talk about that, sorry, in a minute. But you can see there's a lot going on in Aries. So again, this emphasis, we have this invitation to explore, who am I? To start to ask ourselves, who am I? Who am I really? Who am I, as apart from the obligations and duties and all that have been placed on me? Venus, which was in Pisces, is now in Aries. So our values and our self-relationship, our relationship with others, all of that, like, who am I? So before we can step into a relationship, if our relationships are going to be balanced, we have to know who we are. Who am I? I need to know who I am. The more I know who I am, the more I can grow in stability within myself, and the more I can enter into stable relationships. The more I know who I am, the more I can be courageous. Oh, that was the thing that I wanted to talk about. Sorry, I forgot. So when we step into an existing structure or system, we kind of have to conform and adapt to that, or conform is a better word for Capricorn, ourself to that system and structure. We can lose touch with ourselves. If we've lost touch with ourselves, our identity, how can we be courageous? If Aries is saying who we are and courage are linked together, if we don't know who we are, maybe we can't access courage. And there's a lot of talk about people aren't courageous. Well, maybe they're not courageous because we've all lost touch with who we are, because we've all been raised in the system that says step into the existing structures and give yourself to that. And we kind of go through a process of losing our touch with who we actually are. Taurus, by the way, also has to do with survival. And so a lot of times we have to step into these structures. We have to agree to lose touch with who we are so that we can survive. So there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of energy going on there. But again, I see the chart inviting us to ask ourselves, to go into a process of asking ourselves, who am I? If we don't already know that, obviously, if you know who you are, this energy is going to play out differently for you. But I focus on, because of my own healing journey, I'm always focusing on what's the thing that might be coming up that is inviting us to go deeper into ourselves so that we can heal whatever needs to be healed and restore ourselves to ourselves. And I feel like there is a lot of that's needed in this world today. So anyway, so a lot of pile up here, whereas in the lunar eclipse chart, the energy is really focusing on the south node. We can see that the shift seems to go from the south node to the north node in the April eclipse chart. And so we might be feeling a lot more energized, a lot more empowered to act also. Aries has to do with action. We may be feeling more empowered to act here. Another thing, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say it, but if Venus has to do with love, and Aries, which is ruled by Mars, has to do with war. And Mars is in Pisces, and there's a softening of that warrior energy. But Aries, in my opinion, and Mars, in my opinion, also is a masculine or active principle of love. If Venus is the receptive principle of love, Mars is the active principle of love. And so it seems to me that there's an invitation here also, a kind of an energetic shift or an opportunity to rethink our experience, or rethink the warring side of Aries. Like, does Aries have to express as war? Or does Mars have to express as war? Or can it express more as this masculine, active principle of love? And what is that? War, it seems to me, well, I understand it comes from a place of believing in, something, and you're fighting for it. Is that really an act of love? I think that's an important question for us to be asking at these times. The other thing, again, thinking about how Pluto is just finished up, or is just finishing up its journey in Capricorn. Again, it is in Aquarius right now, but it's going to step back into Capricorn, I think in September, maybe August. I can't remember, but it's going to stay there until November. of 2024, and then it's going to go into Aquarius for good. So we're still, even though it's in Aquarius, still hasn't quite finished up with Capricorn. So there's still that going on in a way. And to the extent that because we value war, Venus has to do with value. Because we value war, that's a question we could be asking. Do we want to value war? Is that who we are? Or do we value acting in a different way, acting out love or acting into love or something like that, or acting love in a different way? If we're saying that war is a way to act out our love, to express our love, the results of that would suggest we're misguided. And so is there another way to act our love in the world? I don't know how to say it better than that. Sorry about that. But anyway, to the extent that we have agreed, that the culture at large has agreed that war is a reasonable expression of the active principle of love, we've all been shaped by that. Capricorn, conform, it's shaped all of us. And so I think there's, again, going deep into our identity, who are we really? Do we really value war? Do we really want war? Is that we've been shaped to see that war is a good thing? Is that really true? Do we really want that? Is that really in the best interest of all of us individually and as to humanity as a whole, and not just humanity, the rest of the world too, the rest of, the creation on this planet? So anyway, these are just thoughts to think about as we look at these charts. But what I really wanted to do, I didn't expect to go into that much looking at the charts this way, but what I really wanted to do, so I posted an article on my Astrology Journal newsletter that's on Substack. I posted an article, it's part of a Learning Astrology series that I started up, talking about how you can divide the chart into quadrants. And I was looking at this from the perspective of the signs. And one of the things that you can do, I'll just go through it. This is going to be a longer video than I anticipated, but I'll just go through it. So you can divide the chart up into quadrants. And when you do that, so this is the natural wheel, and I just divided it up into quadrants using the horizontal and vertical axis. These are the angles. Essentially, they create the angles in the chart. I didn't talk about the technical aspect of this. I just broke it up into quadrants so I could explain something. Anyway, so when we break it up into quadrants, we get 4 quadrants. We get the first quadrant here with Aries, Taurus, and Gemini in it. And again, this is a natural wheel. We get the second quadrant with Cancer, Leo, and Virgo in it. We get the third quadrant with Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius in it. And we get the fourth quadrant with Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces in it. So the first quadrant is on the lower left. The second quadrant is on the lower right. The third quadrant is on the upper right. And the fourth quadrant is on the upper left. So we can give themes. We can say that each of these quadrants carries a kind of a theme or a symbolic meaning. And the ones that I use, and these are based on kind of, I've kind of taken from what other people have said, and I've come up with these that I use for myself. So identity, the first quadrant stands for identity, I, and the pronoun is I. The second quadrant is the symbolic meaning is expression, and that is me. The third quadrant is relationship, and that's we. And the fourth quadrant is the public life, our. Public life isn't really the best way to say this, but it's the way that I would really think about it is participation and contribution into to something larger than ourselves. But that's too long to put into this little quadrant section. But when I say public life, that's what I'm meaning. So based on these symbolic meanings of the quadrants, we can get ideas about the signs from that. Now, this is a modern astrology idea that I'm drawing on. So in modern astrology, we use a natural wheel. So on the natural wheel, Aries naturally aligns with the first house. And Mars naturally rules Aries. So we say Mars and Aries in the first house are all kind of part of the same symbolism. So we say Mars equals Aries equals the first house. This is a very modern concept. It's not used in traditional astrology. In traditional astrology, Aries is Aries, the first house is the first house, Mars is Mars. It also is in modern astrology, but we also are more lax about it, and we're more willing to sort of merge the symbolism of the three. So anyway, so using this modern astrological approach, that's how I learned astrology. And when I continued learning it, when I started looking into evolutionary astrology, it also uses it. And I find it really helpful. Again, not all astrologers agree with this approach. But anyway, using this idea of a planet equals sign equals house. Well, we have the idea of the identity, or a quadrant having a symbolic meaning, the first quadrant having the symbolic meaning of identity. So we can say Aries, Taurus, and Gemini have something to do with identity. Aries is who am I? Taurus is we're establishing whatever we discovered in the quest for just knowing who we are. We're establishing that in Taurus. And then in Gemini, we're branching out, and we're kind of finding out more about ourselves by engaging with our immediate environment. We're also learning more about ourselves based from this having an established sense of self, established sense of this is who I am. We're just expanding from that place. Anyway, the second quadrant has to do with expression, and we have Cancer, Leo, and Virgo there. Leo makes sense. It is expression itself. It's drama. It's the actor. It's our expression. It's our vitality. It's our sun. It's our light. Well, Cancer, what does that Cancer have to do with expression? Well, Cancer has to do with our emotion. And we could make a very strong case that we can't really express ourselves if we're not in touch with our emotions. So Cancer is a necessary foundation for the expression, for us to be able to express ourselves in Leo. Cancer also is interesting to me because it's the nurturing mother, the mother child. And we, as babies and infants and young children, we learn to process our emotions by our connection with our caregivers. They help us. They actually do the processing of our emotions for us in a certain way. And then from them doing that, we learn how to do it for ourselves over time. So Cancer, and then Leo, and then Virgo, we can say is also about expression in the sense that it's about craft making. We make crafts in Virgo. We enter into service in Virgo. These are ways of expressing ourselves. And then the third quadrant, relationship, we have Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Well, Libra is about one-on-one relationships. Scorpio is about deepening those relationships. And Sagittarius is about expanding our relationships beyond our own culture. And then in the fourth quadrant, we have the public life, or participation and contribution to something larger than ourselves. In Capricorn, there are existing structures and government institutions, et cetera. We step into those and we contribute, participate and contribute in those structures. So just to those structures, to whatever that is about. So I'm in the United States. The idea is freedom for all, or something like that. We're in that culture, presumably participating and contributing in that paradigm. And then I'm not saying that that's actually what's going on, but I'm saying that's what the idea is. That's I think you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, then Aquarius is we break off into smaller groups or into groups. And now we have this kind of collective vision or collective ideal that we're shooting for, or something like that. So we participate and contribute. We step into those groups. We participate and contribute to that thing that's greater than ourselves. And then in Pisces, it's a spiritual realm. So we're more aligned with spirit, and we're participating and contributing within the context of that greater good, that greater something. So we could say this is about participating in this fourth quadrant, we can say is about participating and contributing to some sort of greater good. So that's how I would see that. And then what we can do is we can look at these, we can take these, if we don't know much about astrology, we're just learning, Well, we don't need to know all the symbolisms and the signs. We can just know the quadrants, and we can place, just dots representing each planet, and we can place those on the quadrant wheel with just the names, the identities, or I'm sorry, the symbolic meaning of each quadrant, and we can kind of get a sense of what the chart is about just from that. Now, this is not my idea. This is not my original idea. Comes from Marc Edmund Jones's book on learning astrology. I cannot remember the name of it. It's like How to Learn Astrology or Learning Astrology or something like that. And I read that chapter and I thought it was really interesting. And he has his own takes on what the quadrants mean. So one of the things you want to do is you want to just, you want to learn from more than one source. You want to learn from lots of different sources and kind of build your own understanding of it. I mean, you may want to learn from one source at a time, but just take it as this is one source, and then, continue to evolve your understanding by taking in from other people. So anyway, we can see this happens to be the chart, the quadrant wheel for the lunar eclipse chart for March 25th. So you can see right off the bat, there's a lot going on in this fourth quadrant: public life, participation and contribution to something, to a greater good, bigger than ourselves, something like that. And there's also a lot going on in identity. It's about an equal split here from the upper the upper left fourth house quadrant and the lower left first house quadrant. But we can see this is a lot of what's going on. And then we do see there's some things going on here. We would need more information to know that these are actually really important in this chart, like they're taking a lot of the energy. And actually, we wouldn't need to know that. We don't necessarily need to know from the yod pattern in this chart that this is true, because this is kind of sort of what they call a bucket pattern. So there's a lot going on one half, and then there's usually it's just 1 point here, but we could say there are 2 points here. And these are taking the energy, like the energy is essentially going through these and filtering through these. So we don't even need to know about the yod pattern to know that's happening here. And then we look at this is the same quadrant wheel, but now we have the April 8th lunar eclipse chart. Solar eclipse chart here. And we have a similar thing. We have a lot going on the left. We see it clearly. And then we have one thing here. So once again, there is, although I didn't talk about it in this chart here, I focused more on all this energy happening here. All of these, everything here is still filtering through the south node. And so how do we make sense of that? Well, we can say that as we kind of do all this reflection work, we're also going to be bringing up so Libra's balance and imbalance lots might be coming up from our past that's no longer valid or in balance for ourselves. And we may be starting to let that go. Mars is in Pisces. But let's say you didn't know that. Well, we could just say, well, there's a lot going on here in this identity thing, this identity quadrant. And so whatever is here is going to be kind of doing a lot of the processing work for that. This is going to be, it's just going to be holding or filtering through a lot of the energy. So we don't necessarily need to know what. It's helpful to know that's the south node, but we still know that's happening. So anyway, the other thing that I wanted to point out here is you can see that while there's a lot going on the left here, a lot going on in the left here, a little bit going on over here in the third quadrant, a little bit going on over here in the third quadrant, there's a little bit of a shift. So you can see in the March 5th lunar eclipse chart, there's sort of an equal distribution of planets here in the public sphere as in the identity sphere. But in the solar eclipse chart, things have shifted from the public sphere. There's still some things going on here in a considerable amount, but it's shifted significantly to the identity sphere. So there is a shift going on from March 25th, which we can, in a sense, say that's what we've been doing, and now to what we will be doing perhaps going forward. We have been doing a lot of work in this public life sphere with all of the things that Pluto has been kicking up from, in the world, purging and bringing up and surfacing. We've been doing a lot of work there. And now it's like inviting us to do the identity work. Now let's go down and look at this one other way, or two other ways. We can also divide the chart into hemispheres, into the top hemisphere being the objective, realm, and the subjective realm being the bottom hemisphere. And we can also look at active and receptive. So the left side is active and the right side is receptive. If we look at the objective and the subjective, this is actually where it's more relevant as far as I'm concerned. If we look at the wheels this way, we see that there's an equal split between the objective and the subjective, but here, objective and subjective. So as things have been coming up, we've kind of been doing our subjective work too. But now there's a shift. Yeah, there's still stuff going on here, but it's like we're shifting away from our attention being on the objective realm and more shifting it towards more into the subjective realm. So the subjective being who am I, and the objective being what's going on in the political sphere, and where do I belong, and how am I contributing to something greater than myself. In the subjective sphere, we're more concerned with, wait a minute, who am I? So there's a shift going on. We see this from March 25th to April 8th, to the April 8th, from the March 25th lunar eclipse chart to the April 8th solar eclipse chart. And for me, that feels like a significant shift from where we've been focusing in the past, in the recent past, like, a few years, I would even say. And to now, the energy is shifting to, we're focusing more on building ourselves and growing ourselves and getting to know ourselves, that sort of thing. So that's my thoughts on this. And then the active and I'm not going to talk much about that because I haven't thought a lot about it. But there is a lot going on in the active realm versus the receptive realm. I guess the one thing I would say about this is it's a little bit tricky because these are or bucket patterns. And so while there is a lot going on here, we're having to process it all in the receptive realm area. So what we mean by active and receptive, another way you can think about the left hemisphere is here is where we have agency. And in the receptive hemisphere, here is where we have to figure out a way to harmonize with others. We have to figure out a way to cooperate and collaborate with others. We can't just take an action. We can't just decide to do something and do it. We have to recognize that we're in relationship with others. I might do another video on this because I really have to think about this. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there for now. A lot of different things are kind of coming up, and I don't want to make this video longer than it needs to be. So I'm going to leave it there for now. This was longer than I expected, but I hope it was helpful. Just wanted to show that you can start to work with charts, start to gain competency with working with charts, even just by seeing the distribution of the planets on these different wheels, the quadrants and the hemisphere wheels. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Take good care. I hope this was helpful for you. Okay, bye.